We're three research scientists, and we've put together energyzip.org, where you can check out your electricity use and compare it with the rest of the city. So when you open up the website, you see this nice map of New York and all 5 boroughs, which has a color-coded plot of electricity use per zip code. What we wanted to do was see if we could find a range of different measures which started to highlight some of the differences in energy use around the city. The site starts off measuring electricity use per person, so you can see that listed down here. And if you hover the mouse over different zip codes, you actually get the explicit energy use per person for each zip code. So you can see that down in West Queens it's around 1,300 kilowatt hours per person, but up here in the heart of the Upper West Side, it goes all the way up to 6,700 kilowatt hours per person. So there's a huge energy difference between different regions of the city. Now that's measured per person, but we can then move it to energy use per household. And you see the map evens out an awful lot. It means that the energy use per household is a lot more uniform across the city than the energy use per person. So that's already telling us some useful things, but there are a bunch of other different data sets we can use to give us more insight. So for example, particularly for policy, it's interesting to know what percentage of the household income is spent on electricity. So in this case, the South Bronx, Hunts Point and Mott Haven spend 10% of household income on energy, whereas down in Chelsea it's only 1.4%. Now that is a huge difference. We can also have a look at other things, like this is where energy credits are used in the city. You can also look at the total energy density for the whole city. This is the electricity use per square metre of land area. Unsurprisingly, Midtown shows up like a bright light bulb. We can also zoom in to explore particular neighbourhoods. So let's say I want to go and check out my old neighbourhood on the Upper West Side. It zooms in and it gives us an actual ranking. So it's 9th out of 175 zip codes for energy per person. It's 20th for energy per household, and it's 142nd in percentage of income spent on electricity. As we go back to Hunts Point, we see it goes to first, 9%, and we get a full breakdown. For each different metric, we also have a list of interesting questions, or things that we found interesting out of these, which we can jump to. So for example, which household uses the most electricity per person? If we click to that, it zooms us down to, turns out, the Upper West Side, Roosevelt Island. If we go to total electricity density, we have a question: is this how New York City looks from the sky? The answer: almost. Not how electricity becomes light, but that gives us a link out to this wonderful NASA image, which actually shows us New York City at night. And you can see there Midtown lit up like a Christmas tree. So this is a great way of exploring different metrics of energy use across the city. It's also highly modular and very, very easy to extend. So if we get new data sets that we want to add into this to explore new things, it's very, very straightforward. We also want people to be able to get an idea of how their energy use compares to the energy use for the city as a whole, and also to their zip code. So if we click this link here, and it takes us down to the second section of the app, which tells us that you can compare your electricity use. So, I don't know how my electricity use matches up against the other people in my zip code, and I'd quite like to know if I'm paying more than I should per month over the course of the year. We initially wanted to use seasonal energy use for the city as a whole as a means of estimating inefficiency. So if you have very high summer usage compared to winter usage, you might be using your AC way more than you need to. Seasonal energy use is actually a really sensitive measure for some things that can be targeted for energy efficiency. Unfortunately, the only seasonal energy database is for the whole country. There doesn't exist a public database for New York at all. So part of the reason for building this application is so that we can generate that public data set. So here I've entered the data for the location I currently live in. This is out of my Con Ed bill, so zip code, number of people in the household, and a subset of all the months of last year that I've put in. And we can then actually run a full analysis of your energy use. So total electricity use is lower per household than my local average. It's almost certainly because we live in a pretty small studio. But that's actually telling me that on average I'm saving $368 compared to my neighborhood. And then we also show my seasonal data compared to the normalized US average. So this is my line. You can see this huge spike in September, which is effectively just showing our AC use during the summer last year. and shows that for the rest of the time, my seasonal average actually tracks the country average pretty closely, apart from this massive spike in summer. The grey band you see here shows the uncertainty on our predictions based on the statistical model we're using to compare the user's data with the countrywide average. What we also do is we provide links to a range of programs that we didn't know about before we built this application. So New York City runs a cool roofs program to try and reduce the seasonal variation of building temperatures. There's also Con Ed programs which can subsidize new ACs and a range of other things that people can start to take advantage of. And at the bottom, because we're scientists, we like to know where our data comes from, we've listed each individual data set and provided links out to the Big Apps project page and a link to contact us. I hope you enjoy the app, and we would love any suggestions for taking this forward and increasing the functionality. We learned a huge amount doing this project, and we hope you learn a lot from exploring your city.